The golden age of the WTA is officially over. These leaked private messages show that Iga Świątek is leading a full-scale boycott of Saudi Arabia. Steve Simon and his executives find themselves facing a downfall they never saw coming because they assumed they could buy the sport and the players without resistance. While they fixated on the money, they forgot they could never buy the world number one herself, and that oversight has triggered a civil war within the organization. This leaked correspondence has exposed deep-seated rot that the WTA leadership tried to keep hidden from the public eye for months. These documents confirm this wasn't just a scheduling conflict, but a calculated stand against the Riyadh transition. For months, the WTA board claimed everything functioned perfectly and that players felt excited about the move, but the leaked correspondence paints a much darker picture of the internal reality. Private exchanges with top-tier players show Iga clarified her position with absolute precision, meaning she isn't just skipping a tournament, but is rejecting a system built on greed. She refused to compromise her sporting integrity for a massive paycheck, and now the WTA leadership feels terrified that the rest of the tour will follow her lead. Defiance wasn't a sudden decision for the Polish star. Years of building her reputation on principles culminated in this moment, where she finally drew a line that the Saudi Public Investment Fund couldn't cross with any amount of cash. Every word in those leaked texts proves that the world number one values her legacy more than the millions offered by the Riyadh organizers. Executives are currently spiraling into a total meltdown because they realize their golden girl has officially walked away from the roadmap they spent years building. That changed when the messages hit the public domain, stripping away the carefully crafted PR mask the WTA has worn since the deal was first announced. This scandal centers on the betrayal of the fans, especially since WTA executives promised a new era of prosperity with a record-breaking Saudi deal. Even though they promised a $15 million prize pool, their biggest star was already planning her exit. Iga told her peers she wouldn't be a pawn in a PR machine, and that's when it became clear she values other things more than money. Steve Simon bet the entire future of the WTA on this deal, but now his star attraction is nowhere to be found, which is a massive public embarrassment for the entire board. WTA lies are finally unraveling after they try to frame Iga's absences as fatigue or personal reasons. These leaked messages prove those were calculated lies because Iga remained healthy and ready to play while simply refusing to step foot there. This counts as a massive legal defeat for the board, especially since they have contracts to fulfill with sponsors in Riyadh who expected the world number one. Without Iga on the court, the event exists as a hollow shell, and this failure means the leadership is watching their billion-dollar roadmap go up in smoke. Deception reached a staggering level when you look at the specific timeline of these events. The board told the media that Iga was just taking a break to recharge her batteries, while they were actually receiving messages from her team that she would never play on Saudi soil. This creates a massive credibility gap that the WTA will never be able to close, primarily because they chose to lie to the fans, the sponsors, and the entire tennis world. Now that the truth is out, the consequences are going to be catastrophic for every executive involved in the cover-up. What happened next was even more shocking, as the leaks show the WTA tried to bully Iga into submission during secret hotel room meetings. The executives claimed she was obligated to support the expansion and used the mandatory event rulebook to threaten her with destroyed rankings and fines. But Iga didn't flinch because she knew the fans stood on her side throughout the entire ordeal. While the hero of this story stood her ground, the leaders scrambled to hide the truth from the public and the investors. These secret meetings in New York were nothing short of a coordinated intimidation campaign against a young champion. The documents prove that Steve Simon and his associates tried to make Iga feel responsible for the financial stability of the entire tour. They told her that if she didn't show up in Riyadh, the prize money for every other player would suffer, which was a manipulative tactic designed to make the hero feel like a villain. Iga saw right through the strategy because she understood that the organization's financial problems resulted from years of mismanagement by the people in charge. Documents prove the WTA faces a massive financial black hole, and without the world number one, the broadcast value of the finals drops by 40%. Saudi investors are reportedly furious since they didn't pay for a B-tier tournament, and now the best player in the world is telling them her soul isn't for sale. This procedural failure is massive because the WTA never secured player buy-in before signing away the future of the sport. They acted like dictators, and the result was a full-scale revolution they weren't prepared to handle. The financial house of cards is falling down because the WTA promised things they couldn't deliver. They promised a superstar field, they promised global attention, and they promised a smooth transition to a new market. None of that happened because they ignored the players themselves, which meant they were stuck with a contract they couldn't fulfill and a group of angry investors who want their money back. The reality is that the $2 billion roadmap is now worth less than the paper it was printed on. The decision to ignore the Prague bid is one of the biggest scandals in the history of the sport. The documents prove that there was a viable, player-friendly alternative on the table that would have kept the finals in Europe. The players would have been happier, the fans would have attended in record numbers, and the integrity of the sport would have remained intact. But Steve Simon and his board wanted the Saudi cash, and they were willing to sacrifice everything else to get it. They chose greed over growth, and now they are paying the ultimate price. The second half of this disaster exposes the WTA playbook, which is where the true rot of the system becomes clear. For years, leadership used zero-point penalties and massive financial fines to keep players in line like employees instead of independent athletes. Iga Świątek found the loophole because she is so dominant and financially secure that their threats mean nothing to her. She is exposing the fact that the WTA needs her far more than she needs them, and that shifted the power dynamic instantly. This power struggle is about more than just one tournament, as it represents a fight for the soul of professional tennis. The WTA executives have treated the players like assets that can be traded or sold to the highest bidder without a second thought. They use the rulebook as a weapon to punish anyone who doesn't follow the party line. But when you are the number one player in the world, those weapons lose their power. Iga's defiance has shown every other player on the tour that they don't have to be afraid of the executives anymore. To make matters worse, the WTA tried to paint Iga as a diva who didn't care about the lower-ranked players, hoping to turn the locker room against her. This manipulative move failed because Iga stayed in constant contact with her peers to explain why this stand matters for the long-term health of tennis. She isn't doing this for herself, but to prove that players actually have power when they stand together. The locker room stayed loyal to her, and that left the executives completely isolated in their own offices. The hero's innocence in this feud is clear because she never made it about herself. In the leaked texts, she specifically mentions the welfare of her fellow players and the future of the sport. She isn't looking for more money or special treatment. She is looking for a tour that respects its athletes and listens to their concerns. The villain's attempt to frame her as a diva backfired perfectly because it only highlighted how out of touch the leadership has become. They tried to divide the players, but they ended up uniting them against a common enemy. This broken organization is led by people who lost their way when they thought they could move the finals to a kingdom with no tennis history. They believed they could silence Iga Świątek with a few $1 million, but every rulebook clause they throw at her just makes her look more like a hero. The world sees that the WTA is failing, and while the leadership tried to promise a revolution, all they actually produced was a boycott. Steve Simon is now facing a breaking point as his own board members realize he lied about the level of player support. The systemic implications of this boycott are reaching every corner of the sports world. Other organizations are watching the WTA's collapse and realizing that the era of sports washing is coming to an end. You can't just buy a sport and expect the stars to follow along like robots. Iga Świątek has set a precedent that will be studied for years. She has shown that the most valuable thing an athlete has is their voice, and she used hers to bring a billion-dollar machine to its knees. He told investors the top players were fully committed, but the documents prove he knew about Iga's hesitation months ago and just hoped it would go away. Iga didn't go away. She just got louder by staying silent in public while building a wall of resistance in private. The meltdown is visible in every awkward press release and every time they avoid questions about her schedule. She decided her legacy mattered more than a trophy in the desert, and that silent boycott has left the organization in total ruins. The fallout from these lies is going to be felt for a long time. The investors who were promised a full field of stars are now looking at their legal options. The television networks that paid for the rights to the finals are demanding rebates because the main attraction is missing. The entire financial roadmap of the WTA is based on a lie that Steve Simon told to keep his job. Now that the truth is out, there is no way back for him or the rest of the board. Steve Simon will be remembered as the man who sold the soul of the tour and lost his biggest star because he tried to play poker with a woman who doesn't gamble. IGA's innocence in this feud is undisputed, and while the leadership tried to control her, they only made her more powerful. The Riyadh transition is dead, the sponsors are looking for the exit, and the fans are turning off the television. Iga Świątek has reclaimed the sport for the players, and she showed that no amount of money can replace integrity. The reality of the situation is that the WTA is now a toxic brand. Nobody wants to be associated with a group of executives who threaten their top players and lie to their partners. The move to Riyadh was supposed to be the crowning achievement of Steve Simon's career, but it has turned into his ultimate legacy of failure. He thought he could outsmart Iga Świątek, but he forgot that she is used to winning the biggest matches in the world. This was the most important match of her career, and she won it without even picking up a racket. As the industry continues to distance itself from the WTA, the path forward remains unclear. There are already rumors of a new tour being formed by the players who are tired of the old system's corruption and greed. IGA's boycott was the spark that ignited this fire, and now it is burning out of control. The executives can try to issue as many statements as they want, but the leaked messages have told the only story that matters. They lost the trust of their players, they lost the trust of their fans, and they lost their star. The final stand has been taken, and the hero is the only one left standing. While the villains in the WTA offices are packing their bags and trying to save their own reputations, Iga Świątek is moving forward with her head held high. She proved that you don't have to follow a corrupt playbook to be successful. She proved that the truth is more powerful than any contract or any amount of money. The Riyadh transition was a gamble that destroyed the people who made it, and the world of tennis will be better off because of it. Integrity is a rare currency in modern sports, but IGA has shown that it is the only one that actually matters in the long run. By refusing to step onto that court, she highlighted the massive gap between the values of the athletes and the greed of the administrators. The fans have responded with overwhelming support, proving that the WTA leadership completely misunderstood their own audience. They thought people only cared about the score, but it turns out they care about the person behind the racket. The future of women's tennis is now being written by the players themselves. No longer will they accept being told where to play or how to act by a group of men in suits who have never faced a break point in their lives. The era of the silent athlete is over, and Iga Świątek is the one leading the charge into a new age of transparency and respect. The leaked messages were the beginning of the end for the old guard, and the beginning of a brighter future for the sport. Every document, every text, and every secret meeting has now been brought to light. The WTA leadership can no longer hide behind their non-disclosure agreements or their carefully worded press releases. They have been exposed as manipulative and deceitful, while IGA has been revealed as a brave truth-teller. The struggle for power has reached its conclusion, and the winner is clear to anyone who is paying attention. The WTA board wanted to expand their global reach, but they only succeeded in shrinking their own credibility to zero. What follows will be a long process of rebuilding, but that can only happen once the current leadership is removed. The players have made it clear that they no longer trust Steve Simon or his board to represent their interests. The leaked messages were the final straw for a locker room that has been ignored for far too long. Now, the players are taking control of their own destiny, and they are doing it with the world number one at their side. This is the end of the line for the Riyadh transition and the people who tried to force it on the tennis world. They ignored the warnings, they ignored the players, and they ignored the spirit of the game. Now they are watching as their entire strategy collapses around them. The hero of this story stood her ground and saved the sport from a disastrous mistake. Steve Simon thought he'd destroy Iga Świątek, but he only destroyed himself.